All right, so I recently had a company called AnyViewer reach out to me, and they wanted me to check out their remote access software. And like many others, like TeamViewer, like AnyDesk, don't get AnyViewer confused with AnyDesk. They are remote access softwares that have free and paid versions, and the free versions are obviously limited compared to the paid. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the free version first and how it works with the free version, and then I'll activate a license code that they provided me for this, and I will show you the difference between the free and the paid. We'll talk about the pricing, we'll talk about what I like, what I don't like about it, we'll talk about how it compares to other ones as well, and then I will also have a giveaway for 5 one-year professional licenses near the end of this video. Now, if you've never used a remote access software before, why would you want to? And I think one of the biggest ones for home users is to be able to just control other computers on your network without having to actually go to them or use them or plug them into a monitor, stuff like that. Having remote access software is really, really handy for that. I use them quite a bit. I also use it to support other people quite a bit. So if somebody else is having trouble, it's a really easy way for me to help them along with something or fix something that they're struggling with. So that's more of a niche use case. Another pretty popular one is just to transfer files between computers on the same network. I know a lot of people that do that. They don't want to upload it to Google Cloud and then download it, and they don't want to create a network share where it's a little bit too difficult to do that. So using a remote software, a lot of them will have the ability to transfer files between devices. So that's also really nice. And AnyViewer also mentions the ability to game with it. And, you know, even though they're mentioning that it's a really low latency, which we'll test, gaming remotely just doesn't really work very well unless the service is designed around it. And even then, personal experience hasn't been very good with it. It could work with games that don't require any kind of timing. So something like an RTS, you know, strategy games, you know, slow turn-based puzzle games, something like that. Usually not too bad, but anytime you need to rely on actually having the game react to your input within a reasonable amount of time, probably not going to be the best, but we'll also quickly take a look at some of that as well. So before I go ahead and show what the free version has to offer, let's compare what the free version has with the paid versions. And the free version is listed as high speed. You can get 1 licensed user. You can have 3 devices logged in at once to the account that you have set up. You can manage 10 devices, however. So you can only have 3 devices logged in at a time, but you can manage 10. And you have 2 channels and 2 simultaneous sessions. Now, what the channels mean is that the number of devices that can initiate remote sessions limited to 2, and the amount of sessions you can have on a single computer is also limited to 2. Now, when you go down the list, a lot of the options here are the same. You get the unlimited remote access, you know, there's no time limit. You can view screen, you can do the adaptive screen, you can use multi-monitor support, you can get sound, it allows you to use your mobile device. You get the file transfer, but you don't get the higher speed file transfer. And you also get a very limited size. So the size limit is only 100 megabytes, which is pretty small. Most people are not going to be transferring files below 100 megabytes between computers. Usually it'll probably be something more, like even pictures that I take with my phone camera are over 100 megabytes each. So that one's a little bit unfortunate. It'll do it at a max speed of 500 kilobytes per second, which is also pretty slow. You'd be better off just using a USB stick or something like that. And you can do 100 files at a time. So do keep that one in mind. When you go up to the paid version, you get 10 megabytes per second and unlimited files, and each file can be up to a terabyte in size. So that's a pretty big difference. This is probably one of the weakest points of the free version here. You get all of your shortcuts that work, which is fine. You can lock the interface, and you have 2-factor authentication. Now with the professional version, a lot of things are the same, but you just get more, right? So you get 10 logged in devices, you get 100 managed devices, unlimited channels, and unlimited computers that you can control at once. So that's pretty awesome. As I mentioned, you have the much higher transfer speeds and file sizes. So that one's pretty huge. The multi-monitor is the exact same, so that's no big change there. And then you have the access of privacy mode, which blacks out the screen on the other end. This is only really useful if you're going to be logging into something on someone else's computer and you don't want them to see your login credentials or something like that. This is more geared towards like a network admin doing something on a user's computer. So this doesn't really apply to most users that would be using this. And you also get the higher quality image in terms of the refresh rate. And then enterprise is something that I don't think anybody watching this video is going to be leveraging, because it's very similar in terms of the actual usage on the professional side, but now you get a bunch of users that can use it on one license, right? So you get 30 licensed users instead of one. So if you're managing a group, this is better. You know, you get a lot more managed devices, you get a lot more logged in devices, and everything else is basically the same, except that you get the mass deployment and you can create groups. So again, this is not really meant for individuals. This is meant for larger groups. The professional one is still targeted towards individual people. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and control my computer. So I have my main computer here. I have my small form factor computer also running AnyViewer. They're both logged in so that I don't have to do any kind of code inputs or allow or disallow. Makes it very easy for me. We can see that we have my small form factor computer here, and I have quite a few options. I can do one-click control, which is, you know, basically being able to control everything, which is great. You can just view the screen. So if you're just having someone show you something, you can do just view screen, very easy. You have the file transfer. You can lock the computer, reboot it, shut it down. You can do a screen wall, which shows all the different displays at once. And then you can just see the properties. And as we see here, the privacy mode is locked because I'm using the free version right now. Before we hop into the computer, let's see what kind of settings we have available to us. So we have the availability to turn on unattended. So as long as both logged in computers are there, I can go ahead and log into each one of them with the other, as long as I'm logged into the same account without having to do any kind of pop-ups to type in the security code or do the allow or disallow. So that's great. I will allow accept remote control, allow temporary security codes. Pretty simple as a controller. This is just what the default is. You can always change this once you actually start controlling a computer. You can hide desktop wallpapers, you know, pretty standard stuff here. These are all the shortcuts, so you can enable these if you want to. And security, you can lock interfaces, lock AnyViewer. And then basic, you can have it so that it starts AnyViewer with Windows or not. I'm not going to have that on. I don't like having those on. And prevent this device from automatically sleeping. You can have that on or turn it off, entirely up to you. You can set the device name for the particular device you're using. And then the transfer path. So when someone transfers files to you, where is it going to go? And then your language. So let's go back to our device. Let's control to our small form factor. And here we are. And in this small window, looks pretty good. If we full screen this, however, gets a little rough. It clears up once I start doing things and once the image is static, but once you start to do it, it's pretty blocky. The image quality is not great, but if you're just using this to help somebody through with something, not a big deal. The latency is actually not too bad. One of the really cool things is that I actually have that computer also plugged into my capture card. So let me set up a quick side-by-side comparison. All right, so we've got kind of a side-by-side comparison here. So we have my main gaming computer here on the top left, and then we have the computer that we're remoting into on the bottom right. So if I go ahead and open up the start menu, there is a delay. You know, we're also factoring in the capture card delays and all that kind of stuff as well, but there is definitely a delay here. It's noticeable. So again, as I mentioned earlier, for gaming, I don't think this is great. Maybe that'll improve with the paid version. We'll check that one out. But I mean, other than that, it does a pretty decent job. You know, the clicks are going through fine. The quality, as I mentioned, is bad when it starts up. It seems to clear up though, and the quality has improved quite a bit. My gaming computer is connected via Ethernet at 2.5 gig network, and my small form factor computer is using Wi-Fi right now, Wi-Fi 6. It's a pretty good setup, I think. I don't really foresee any noticeable improvements by going to, actually. So to quickly test out if the latency improves at all with both computers being plugged into the network via Ethernet instead of one via Wi-Fi, which the small form factor was on Wi-Fi. They are now both connected to my local area network, both on 2.5 gig interfaces, and no real change there to the latency as far as I can tell. So, you know, the Wi-Fi 6 that it was on before was pretty good, and the Ethernet that's on now, really no change there. So do keep that one in mind. And now that we're in here, we can go ahead and just take a look at some of the other options. So we can change our resolutions, and the quality will improve, you know, from there, but we're at 1440p, so that's pretty good. Now it's not going to be at 60 frames per second because that's on the paid version. It's not going to be in the high quality version because that's also on the paid version. There is a high speed though, so let's see if that improves our latency. Let's go back to this side by side here, and let's go ahead. Well, it's yelling at me saying that the network is not fast enough. As we can see though, the device is still there and it's still plugged in and there's no network issues on that end. So let's see if the automatic reconnect works here. All right, so we reconnected. We are on, it did not go to the high speed mode. Let's try the high speed mode again. All right, we're on high speed mode now. Maybe a little bit of a delay difference compared to before. We'll do a quick swap back to the balanced. I mean, a little bit of a difference, but again, not super noticeable. There's still a noticeable difference between the two. Not a super noticeable difference between the balanced and the high speed mode. So again, do keep that one in mind. On the operation side, we have all those options that we saw before. We also have the ability to quickly launch this PC, task manager, command. Now in the Pro version, you're able to disable the mouse and keyboard of the recipient. Again, this is more important when you're doing IT support for someone and they keep on clicking on things when you're trying to navigate somewhere. It's to stop them from doing that. Blacking the screen out, again, as I mentioned, it's to stop the user from being able to see your credentials when you're logging in with an admin account for something. You can lock the device when disconnected. So as soon as I disconnect, it'll lock the other device. So that's pretty cool. I can hide the desktop wallpaper if I want to, and you can lock the mouse into the window. Now there's also a chat here, so if I do want to send a message to myself and say hello, it'll go ahead and pop up there. That's actually pretty quick. I would say that's probably quicker than the actual input delay, so that's cool. And then we have the ability to transfer the files. Again, the speeds are really, really slow. All right, so let's go ahead and do a file transfer. I was having a few issues before, so let's see if this one works properly. We're gonna send the AnyViewer setup over to the other computer. And it's still failing. It's very weird. I can send files back to myself very slowly. And these both said that they had failed before, but now they're saying that they were fine. So let's take a look at those and see if they even open up properly. They don't. They broke. So file transfer is not working so great here. And that's very, very slow. I'm just gonna cancel that. Not even worth my time. So before we switch over to the paid version, we're gonna go ahead and use this on mobile, see how the mobile control is, controlling my computer right here with my mobile phone instead. All right, so we're here. We're gonna go ahead and do our small form factor again. So let's go ahead and connect to that. It's gonna give us some guides. Left click is one tap, right click is, or sorry, double left click is double tap, okay. And then holding is to drag, okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and rotate this over. and connection timed out. So I've been trying to connect for quite a bit now. I've done a whole bunch of tries at this. It doesn't seem to be working. I give up on it for now. We'll see if we hop into the paid version, if anything improves here between the file transfer and the mobile device connection. Okay, so we've activated the professional, right? I can connect in privacy mode. I have all those things now. Still unable to connect with the mobile device. I've tried hopping between different networks, all that kind of stuff. Still not helping. Let's see if the other improvements with the professional version are here. So we get the higher quality mode. So this is it on high quality mode, right? We hit the start. We can read everything. Seems to be okay. There's a little bit of artifacting happening here. If we switch to balanced, we'll let that think for a second. And let it think itself out. Get a little bit clearer, as it often does. Honestly, don't see too much of a difference. There's still artifacting again, but I don't really notice that much of a difference between the two modes. We're on 60 frames per second, so we do get that higher refresh rate when we're inside here, but again, we're not really noticing anything different. Let's see if the latency is any better. So let's go to high speed mode, which should be the lowest latency. We'll do our side-by-side, and we'll hit our start menu. And the latency does not seem noticeable improvement over the free version at all. So there's no, background hidden kind of improvement from the free to the pro version in terms of latency. And with this latency, we're on the highest mode in terms of speed, and it still has this latency. So I'm not even going to bother gaming because this is just not a good time. Unless, like I mentioned before, you're playing a strategy game or you're playing a turn-based game or a puzzle game where input timing doesn't matter at all, that this could be fine, but it's still not great, and I personally wouldn't use it. Balanced mode seems to make the most sense for helping people and doing all those things, but gaming, I wouldn't do at all. So going back to file transfers, still having issues here. If I try to do the AnyViewer file and I go to send it, it fails. If I do this little tiny desktop INI file, it's only 504 bytes. It sends over fine. I can even receive it back and it works fine. If I bring these images back over, it's still pretty slow. This is not a big file. It's 8 megabytes. We'll come back once this is finished and see what happens. So again, it received successfully. It's a broken file, but it received successfully. Remember that these computers are both on 2.5 gig local network. And that's how long it took for the file to transfer over, which is pretty atrocious for a less than 10 megabyte file. To confirm again, we are on the Pro Edition. So we're supposed to be getting these faster speeds, but it's not happening. And those transfer speeds are atrocious. And I think it's probably one of the main reasons why I wouldn't suggest this software to anyone who's going to be using it for file transfers. Now let's talk about pricing compared to some other options. At the free tier, I honestly think there's a lot of better options out there. TeamViewer Free is better in almost every aspect, other than the fact that TeamViewer is a very annoying program. It spams you at all times about paying for it. It's kind of a nuisance, but it's really good at what it does. And the file transfers is a huge difference between AnyViewer and TeamViewer. TeamViewer max file size is 4 gigs instead of 100 megabytes. And the file speed, the transfer speeds are pretty good. They work really, really well. So AnyViewer Free, not really great. Now, once you get into the paid tiers, the AnyViewer Professional is very doable in terms of pricing. It's only $4 a month. When you compare it to the other options, TeamViewer is $24.90 a month for the lowest tier. So, that's relatively expensive. AnyDesk is a little bit cheaper. It's $14.90 a month. Still not nearly as cheap as $3.58 a month. So if some of these features, the only features that, as I've been able to test, are worth paying for, are being able to have more devices, more channels, and more simultaneous sessions. The quality improvement didn't really seem super noticeable. The file transfers were just terrible across the board. And if you're planning on using the software at all for file transfers, at this moment in time, I would just avoid AnyViewer as a whole. Maybe they'll improve this, and maybe they'll fix it, which would be great. And if they do, I'll leave a pinned comment with an update in there. But at this moment, the transfer speeds are just really, really bad. But the price for the unlimited channels, unlimited sessions, and having those extra devices on there is not bad. And if this is something that you're interested in, that is a really good price. But you do really have to compare this to the other two major options like TeamViewer and AnyDesk and see if the $358 is getting you all that you need, or do you have to pay a little bit more to get more of the stuff that you want, like file transfers, like lower latency, and stuff like that. Now, I did mention that there's going to be a giveaway, and I have 5 one-year professional license codes to give away. It'll give you a chance, if you do win it, to try it out and see if it's worthwhile and see if you want to continue doing it. I'm going to continue trying to use the software over the next little while. I haven't had too much time to play with it. I haven't had too much time to troubleshoot and do all that, but I have been trying over the last day to try to do quite a bit of things on the free version before going to the paid, and the paid didn't seem to fix any of those problems. So do keep that one in mind, but I do have 5 one-year professional license codes. There will be a link down the description below for that giveaway, and you're welcome to enter, and it will be going until the 2nd week of May. So get entered if you do want to win one of those codes. And now, in terms of final thoughts, I've basically said it already, but the free tier, I think there are better options out there like TeamViewer. Once you get into the paid tiers though, the pricing for AnyViewer is really, really good. So if the paid tier gets you all of the features that you want, like the increased devices, sessions, and channels, then I think it's a great price. $358 a month is really, really minimal, so that's great. But again, if you're planning on doing transfers at all between devices, as of right now, even the paid tier is just not working very well, and it's having issues. It's really slow, and half of the stuff that I try to transfer fails. So I can't add that as a value proposition for paying for the paid version at this moment. As I mentioned, if it gets fixed, I will leave a pinned comment with the update in the comment section, but as of right now, it doesn't really help as an added proposition. The software itself is very simple to use, so that is an added benefit. Again, the mobile device stuff isn't working, so that kind of stinks, and it only supports Windows desktop and then Android and iOS mobile. It does not support macOS, does not support Linux, so do keep that in mind as well, whereas the other options do. So kind of keep all these things in mind. Overall, it's not a terrible program, and a lot of these things can be improved as long as the pricing stays the same. If they're able to fix the file transfer speeds, the mobile connection problems, the latency maybe would be really, really nice, and then adding support for more platforms, the paid version can become fantastic. On the free version, if they change that file transfer situation and then they improve all those things that we mentioned that are problematic right now, the free version can also be very good. I like the interface. It's super simple and easy to use. It just stinks that the software isn't really working up to a level that it should be working at. So do keep all those in mind. And with all that said, I really do hope you found this video helpful. And if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to leave those down in the comment section below. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, Slotsime and Stepback, and thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any of the other videos where I talk about software and things computer related, you can check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.